Ever notice how broken heart gets tossed around for like every little heartache?
Right.
But infidelity, that's a whole other level of shattered.
Absolutely.
And we've got sources stacked high here about rebuilding trust after something like that. But got to be upfront. We're not tackling the should you stay or should you go dilemma today. That's a deep dive for another time.
Whole other can of worms.
Exactly. Today's about the how, the tools, the messy steps, the uphill battle of putting the pieces back together if that's the path you're on.
Totally. Because anyone who's been through it knows it's not like you just glue the thing back together and it's good as new. And these sources you've brought in, they get that. It's a process, not a quick fix.
Right. So let's unpack that process, shall we? First thing that jumps out from pretty much every expert is this whole transparency thing.
Ah, yes. The T word.
But so many people I talk to, it's like the last thing they want to do after their trust has been blown up.
Makes sense though, right?
It's like, you broke my trust once, shame on you. You think I'm going to hand over the keys to the kingdom now.
Well, and that's where it gets interesting, I think. Because true transparency after infidelity, it's not actually about giving the other person more control.
Oh.
It's about you reclaiming a sense of control of your own actions, your honesty.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Unpack that a bit more.
So think about it. Our brains, they crave consistency. When we say one thing but do another, like I value fidelity, but then there's infidelity, we create this internal dissonance.
Right, like a mental tug of war.
Exactly. And to resolve that, we either own up to the mismatch or we minimize it. We hide stuff, make excuses, which just digs that trust hole even deeper.
Yeah.
So transparency in this context, it's less about here's all my passwords and more about consciously choosing honesty in your words, your actions, even when it's scary.
Which is probably terrifying after someone's betrayed you like that.
For sure. It's a huge leap of faith. But that's where the real rebuilding starts.
So that leads us to, I think, the next big hurdle, taking responsibility.
There's a loaded term.
Right. Easy to demand, but so much harder to actually live out, especially in this kind of situation. So how does someone even begin to take responsibility for something like this?
You've hit the nail on the head. It's about the how. And I think a big part of it is separating blame from accountability.
Ooh, good distinction.
Because blame gets you stuck. It's
Yes,
pointing the
yes,
finger,
yes.
you're a bad person for doing this, which, yeah, might feel momentarily satisfying, but it doesn't actually move anything forward.
No, it just creates defensiveness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Accountability, on the other hand, it's like, this happened, and my choices contributed to it. I own that. It doesn't erase the hurt, but it creates space for repair.
Because it shows you're willing to look at your part in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you spill coffee all over someone's big project, right?
Oh.
Saying, my bad doesn't unsoak the papers, but it acknowledges the impact of what you did, which then allows you both to focus on solutions.
Instead of just arguing over who bumped whose arm.
Exactly. So with infidelity, owning your part in the breakdown, even if it wasn't intentional, it's a huge step towards rebuilding.
So we've got honesty, we've got owning our actions, but then comes like this whole other level of construction work almost, setting clear boundaries.
Yeah, the where do we go from here phase.
Because if someone's hurt me that badly, my instinct is less healthy boundaries and more barbed wire fence keep out kind of thing, you know?
Oh, 100%. It's self-protection 101. But the thing about boundaries in this context, they're not about punishing the other person. They're about creating a safe space for both people to heal and rebuild.
Okay, I can see that.
It's like, maybe before, checking each other's phones wasn't a big deal. But now, after what's happened, it feels like a huge violation. So a boundary might be, hey, I need you to respect my privacy while I work through this. No more checking my phone, no snooping. It's about redefining what's acceptable now so that both people can start to feel safe enough to be vulnerable again.
That's a really good point about safety. Because vulnerability after betrayal that's a tough ask.
Right. And it's not going to happen overnight,
Hmm?
which is where, and maybe this is a good segue, this whole get professional help advice comes in.
Because this is way beyond what a self-help book can fix.
It's like having a mysterious illness.
Yeah.
You can try to diagnose it on WebMD, but at some point, you need a professional.
Yeah.
And a therapist, that's what they are for relationships, relationship specialists. They're not there to take sides or wave a magic wand, but they provide a neutral space for those really tough conversations.
Provide some tools too, right?
Exactly. Coping mechanisms, communication strategies, all that good stuff. They're like emotional personal trainers. They provide the structure, the support, but the real work that happens between the two people in the relationship.
Which brings us to, as they say, the hardest part,
Oh boy, let's hear it.
patience. Because we live in a world of instant gratification, next day delivery, swipe right romance.
Don't I know it?
But healing from betrayal, that's not a quick process.
Nope, not at all. It's more like recovering from a physical injury. It takes time, consistent effort, and yeah, there are going to be setbacks along the way.
Totally.
Some days you wake up and you feel strong, hopeful, like you're making progress. And then other days, bam, the same old insecurities and doubts come creeping back in.
It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes.
Often. But that's normal. It's about acknowledging those feelings without letting them derail the entire journey.
So, to kind of pull this all together, it sounds like what we're saying is rebuilding trust after infidelity, it is possible.
Yes.
But it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Well said. And these 5 things we've talked about, they're really just the starting line.
Not the finish line.
Exactly. And to anyone listening who's on that journey right now, remember, you're not alone. The human spirit is capable of incredible resilience
It really is.
and a deeper, even stronger connection after a rupture like this. It is possible, but it takes both people committing to that rebuilding process, brick by brick, with honesty, with accountability, and a whole lot of grace for themselves and each other.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that, I think, is the perfect note to end on. So for those of you listening, wherever you are in your own journey, the question we'll leave you with is, what's one small step you can take today, right now?
Love that.
It doesn't have to be huge, even just one little thing to move towards healing, towards rebuilding.